The following is a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys. The Siniard Law Show, answering your legal questions, featuring attorneys Tommy Siniard, Bart Siniard, and your host, Aaron Dacey. This is the Siniard Law Show.
Hello and welcome to the Siniard Law Show, where we welcome your legal questions and educate you on various areas of the law. Siniard Law is a father-son personal injury firm right here in the Tennessee Valley, focused on giving back to the community through legal education. Siniard Law recently received recognition again as a Tier 1 personal injury litigation firm by Best Lawyers in America. Bart Siniard is on the list of Best Lawyers in America 3 years running, and Tommy Siniard has more than 3 decades of recognition by Best Lawyers in America. Tonight, we're discussing legal angles of car accidents, and we have a very special guest, Tommy Battle, the mayor of the city of Huntsville. We invite you to share your legal questions about car accidents or any topic of the law. Just email questions@siniardlaw.com or call us at 844-7000-LAW, and your question may be featured. Now to our legal tip of the week: what to do if you're in a hit and run car accident. Bart Siniard and Barnes Hayward joining us this evening with expertise.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about car accident, insurance claims and legal issues involved. We have Barnes Hayward with us, our partner at Siniard Law, to talk about this. But wanted to spend just a minute or two on hit and run accidents, because they are getting more and more common every year. It's a scary trend we're seeing in North Alabama. And a lot of people don't know what to do after them. Obviously, if you can get any identifying information, great. If you can't, there's several steps you can take. You got to call the police. They will do an investigation, of course. But there's sometimes things you can do on your own to help in the situation. It's a felony for somebody to leave the scene of an accident if there's injuries. And it's still a criminal charge, a misdemeanor, if they leave the scene with no injuries. So it's a criminal matter, and police will investigate it. But you always want to look for witnesses who are on the scene to see what they saw. We've had several personal injury cases where a witness provided key information that helped us track down the at-fault driver who fled. Surveillance video footage can be really important. At least getting the make and model of the vehicle can then help police. And then the other thing people need to be aware of with hit and run accidents is protecting yourself before they happen with the right kind of car insurance. Barnes, explain that.
Yeah, people, when they're involved in a hit and run, especially if you can't track down the person that hit you, feel like, hey, I'm gonna have no recourse. I mean, what do? You can't find the person who's responsible. I don't have an insurance company that I think I can file a claim against, especially if I'm hurt and I've got medical bills that are piling up. And we talk about this a lot, and we probably should get commissions for all the underinsured motorist coverage that we sell. But people, if you're out there and you're unfamiliar with what underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage is, it is so important that you have it. In Alabama, by law, insurance companies, they have to offer it to you. And so, in fact, in order for you not to be covered with underinsured motorist coverage, you have to reject it, and you have to reject it in writing. And so you may think that I don't have it. Well, go check your declarations page and see if that coverage is on there. Even if it's not on there, sometimes insurance companies will claim that you've rejected the coverage even when it hasn't been rejected in writing. And so that's an instance where I would definitely recommend calling somebody like us to find out if you have it. But that coverage is there, especially in hit and run cases where you can't find the responsible person. Under the law, they're considered to be a phantom motorist. That just means that you couldn't ascertain the identity of who hit you. But that's where uninsured motorist coverage is really important, because technically under the law, that person who hit and then fled the scene is considered to be uninsured. Well, that uninsured motorist coverage, it basically acts like liability coverage for everybody else on the road. And so all of a sudden, now there's coverage that you've got under your own policy that can be there to cover expenses like medical bills, pain and suffering, all the things that you would normally be able to claim in a car wreck case with injury. And one thing to add too, compared to liability coverage, it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
And so we really can't emphasize that enough, because we see cases like this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really sad when we find out there's no UIM coverage, and in that instance, you're almost out of luck.
You really are. I mean, 1 out of 5 cars riding around out on the roads don't have valid car insurance on them. And so if you have the financial means to protect yourself, I mean, you can get it for like $17 a month.
Wow.
And people just don't know about it or don't realize it's an issue until it's too late. You can't go buy it after the wreck. You got to have it in effect at the time of the wreck. And I just wish more people knew that.
That's reassuring, though, that you have to turn it down in writing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's it. Why do you think that hit and run accidents are increasing?
You know, I worry that it's the rising costs of car insurance, that a lot of people just can't afford liability insurance, and it's required by law. And if you don't have it, you know, it's a criminal offense. You can have your license suspended. So I worry that people just can't afford liability insurance and are scared of getting their driver's license suspended. Some people, I'm sure, have warrants out and just don't want to interact with law enforcement, or they may have been drinking and driving or have drugs in the vehicle. For whatever reason it is, it's a problem, and it's getting worse, not better.
That's not good. Well, let's get to our viewer questions. This first question tonight comes from Chris, who left us a voicemail.
So I was in a car accident. Ended up getting a copy of the police report, and the police report says that I'm at fault. But the other driver, he admitted to not paying attention, and he ended up running the red light and hitting me. There was even a witness that saw the whole thing. Is there any way that I can go about getting that accident report changed?
So there is a process for getting a crash report amended, but a lot of times it can be difficult. You have to get a message to the investigating officer that you're requesting an amendment. Police officers, state troopers, they're obviously busy. They may not always have time to get back to you about what they may view as a relatively minor issue. But we've had success, you know, getting them changed in some circumstances. I would tell this person it's not necessarily the end of the world, though, if the crash report says he's at fault, because one of the few things most people don't realize is that a accident report is not admissible evidence in court. It's considered a hearsay document, and hearsay is just anything that was prepared by somebody without personal knowledge of what happened. Now, if the police officer saw the wreck, then that's a different story. But in almost all cases, the police officer who did the report didn't see the wreck. So it would never be shown to a jury if the case went to trial. But still, car insurance companies treat accident reports as the holy grail. You know, they have to be true. And a lot of times they're just not accurate for a lot of different variety of reasons. But he needs to, if he said there was a witness at the scene, well, I hope he got that witness's name and phone number. If he did, he'd get them to make a statement. You know, if there's photos that align with his version of events, you know, the damage angles to the vehicles, things like that, trying to collect all the evidence.
You would think that a police officer, though, that'd be considered the gospel truth because it's a police officer. That's interesting. You're saying the hearsay.
And law enforcement's trying to do the best job they are. But a lot of times they're more focused with securing the scene, getting the vehicles off the road so the traffic, you know, sometimes I think they just feel like they have bigger fish to fry, and sometimes the report has inconsistencies or inaccuracies. Not to say anything negative about them, but you know, their most important job is making sure we're all safe. So a lot of times that's their primary focus, as it should be.
Understandable. When the Siniard Law Show returns, Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle will tell us about the city's progress during his tenure as mayor.
Harrison Brothers brings together the best of North Alabama. Our curated selection of local art, fine crafts, and gourmet food are great gifts for everyone on your shopping list. We carry books by local authors, and our toys pique a child's imagination. At Harrison Brothers, your purchases support artists and artisans right here in the Tennessee Valley. Located on Huntsville's Courthouse Square since 1897, Harrison Brothers is more than a store. It's a tradition.
Bart Siniard is with Huntsville's Mayor Tommy Battle, who is serving his 5th term. And Bart, a lot has happened in Huntsville since Mayor Battle took office back in 2008.
Thrilled to be here tonight with Huntsville's Mayor Tommy Battle. Been the mayor of the city of Huntsville now more than 17 years.
Yeah.
And appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for being here, Mayor.
Oh, glad to be here.
Wanted to ask you, first off, how did you get into municipal politics? I know you ran, city council back in the 80s?
Yeah. Many moons ago, I ran for city council, and this was back when we were running city at large. I was 28 years old, running for city council. There were 5 people in the race, and I had some really good friends out there who helped with the race and helped me, go door to door and do all the things that you had to do when you were running. And we were too young and dumb to know we weren't supposed to win, and we won, and I woke up the next day and said, wow, now I got to really do something. And so from 84 through 88, we worked, I was on city council. I had my own restaurant, my own business, and a young family, and it was a lot of fun. But I kind of felt I was overtaxing the idea of still being able to be a part of a family and do all those things. So in 88, I decided I was going to go up or out. So again, 5 people in the race. I ran for mayor in 88 and got into the runoff, and the runoff was between myself and Steve Hettinger, and the people elected for me go back to the private sector. So I headed back to the private sector, and really, it was the best thing ever happened to me. I call that life outside the fishbowl. Elected life is somewhat life inside the fishbowl. But This was life outside the fishbowl, and I got to do a lot of things I never would have gotten to do. I got to work be on the HIMSI board. I got to be on the solid waste board. I got to be on the early works board. I got to work in my church and do some things that I wouldn't have been able to do. Coach my son. So Lord takes care of everybody, and somehow He took care of me.
Well, clearly, you wanted to get back into public service. Yeah. And what was that like, making that decision to throw your hat into the ring for mayor back in 2008? 2008.
That was a tough decision because things were really good. I mean, we had a small real estate firm that was working some retail things that were working real well, and things were great. And we were going through a leadership Huntsville class, and we had a great class, and we were all talking about we could do this, and maybe we could do it a little bit better. Maybe we could do this. I mean, the city of Huntsville was definitely not on the ropes or anything else. Mayor Spencer had done a good job, but we just kept thinking that we could do something a little bit more and maybe help shape the future of the city. And our whole class kept talking about that, and there's about 50 of us in class, and finally it came down to, if we're going to do it, who's going to do it? And I had, having run for mayor before, still had the inkling in my blood to do it, and there were several times I said, I'm not going to do this. Things are too good. But personally, I've got a great personal life and everything. But finally, it just kind of came down to that we felt like we could do something great here. And, over the past 17 years, almost 18, we've been able to do some great things.
It seems like the city of Huntsville's won about every award you can win out there under your leadership. Going back, though, over these past 17 plus years, what are one or two of the things you're proudest of the most in regards to your work with the city?
I think the 2 things I'd be proudest of most is when we came in, we had a section of the town who was challenged, and that section of the town always said that they've been left out of the economic prosperity of Huntsville, that they weren't part of the economic prosperity. They didn't have jobs, they didn't have new housing, they didn't have they didn't have new schools, and And so, when I ran under the idea of one city, one vision, and there was no way to pull the city together until we were able to get past that fact. Mm-hmm. And so we realized that we had some great entry-level jobs, but they were all about minimum wage. We had some great jobs on the upper end, which were rocket scientists and engineers and degree professionals. But that middle section, we were just really missing it. We had 300 jobs open up at Toyota Motor Manufacturing, and 10,000 people applied, which meant that you had a lot of people who were underemployed. Yeah. And so we went after advanced manufacturing, and over the past eight or 10 years, we've been able to add about 30,000 advanced manufacturing jobs. Yeah. And that's everything from Mazda, Toyota, to Blue Origin, to GE Aviation, Polaris, and all those companies that we've been able to go through. And they've added a middle section to what we have. Advanced manufacturing gives someone an opportunity to make $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, and make a really decent living, and raise a family and put food on the table. And so we were able to conquer that. And as we did that, we didn't hear that same conversation from those folks in those areas, because all of a sudden they had opportunity. And opportunity is what I think government's all about. Give someone the opportunity for a job. You don't have to give them a job, give them the opportunity for a job. That was one thing. The second thing would probably be restore our roads. We're right now finishing up the last of the roads that we were able to do under Restore Our Roads. And we've made some real progress. We've got overpasses down south on the Parkway. We've got overpasses at Maston Lake right now. We're doing the Northern Bypass. We were able to improve Research Park Boulevard. You go down the list. We were able to do probably 8 or 9 different projects. It's taken 12 years to get them done, but it's made it where you can get around town and you have a good road network. Yeah. Next step's going to be Restore Roads 2, where we got more roads we have to do. But that's part of a growing city. If you're growing, you're going to have to grow your infrastructure as you grow your city. Yeah, no doubt.
What would you say, if you had to say one of the most challenging things in your tenure of mayor, that the toughest thing you've had to get through, either from a policy standpoint or a practical standpoint, what would that be?
I think the toughest thing, and it sounds trite, but it's communication. That's the toughest thing in the city right now. There's a whole lot of stories that can't be told in 45-second news segments. There's a whole lot of stories that that need to have the written word put on them, and we have to do it ourselves, because we've got a print media group who covers Mobile, Huntsville, and Birmingham, and you don't really get that in-depth looks at what you're doing. Yeah. So communication is tough, because if you don't communicate it to people, they'll make it up, and the stories they make up are probably just not the same ones that are factual that we have. So we started off with a communication department of one person, and basically they were a press secretary, and we're now up to 6 people in our communication department, but we produce weekly shows on city council. We do newsletters for city council. We do newsletters for the mayor. I do a Friday update. We do a lot of things to make sure that we keep communicating with everybody, so that they know what we do, why we do it, what's the reason for it. We've even put in some leadership classes in the city of Huntsville, and this will be your department heads or people right under your department heads who are going to be in leadership at some point. Right. And we'll pull them in and have a 8-week course of this is what Huntsville is about, and this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it.
Well, y'all are doing a great job with that. Well, Mayor, I really appreciate you being here, and thank you for your leadership of Huntsville over the last 17 plus years.
Thank you.
When the Siniard Law Show returns, we'll get to more of your legal questions, and we'll tell you how you can sign up for the Siniard Law Firm's free monthly newsletter.
I got sandwiched between an 18-wheeler and a truck. During the accident, I lost my left leg. I chose Siniard Law because my granddad knew they had a great reputation. They were very knowledgeable. They were very sweet. We had a connection. They pretty much treated us like family. I would definitely recommend Siniard Law because they are caring and they will help you get what you deserve. If you've been injured, call Siniard Law.
Welcome back to the Siniard Law Show. If you would like to sign up for Siniard Law's newsletter, which provides free monthly legal tips, just scan the QR code or be sure to sign up at siniardlaw.com. Now let's get back to you, our viewers, and your questions. Tammy writes, my son was driving my car and hit someone. The person he hit is now threatening to sue us, and my insurance company is saying they aren't going to help because my son was not listed on our insurance policy. Is there any way to fight back with my own insurance so that my son doesn't get sued? I bet that's a pretty common situation, Bart and Barnes.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm smiling because it may be the attorney representing the person that he hit who becomes his best friend in finding coverage in this instance. And coverage issues are really important, and our job, one of the first things that we're doing is a coverage investigation on behalf of our client who was the victim, the injured party, to find all the available coverage, because that's going to be useful for us in making sure that our client gets all the compensation that their case warrants and what they deserve. And so, what my first thought is that her son is probably what's called a permissive driver. But it's going to come down to the language in her insurance policy. There are still some companies out there that have exclusions that make you list all of the permissive drivers. And if it's not listed...
Progressive, I know.
Yes, Safeway is another one.
Yeah.
And if they're not listed on the policy, then they may not afford coverage. But under most policies, so long as she has given her son permission, which I'm sure she did in this case, to drive her vehicle, and he was doing it with her knowledge, then he ought to be covered. But I wouldn't just accept whatever the insurance company is telling her, because again, we say it a lot, insurance companies, they're not in the business of paying claims, or they're in the business of collecting premiums, and this seems like an instance where the insurance company may be protecting their own interests rather than that of their insured.
And one other thing we see too is sometimes people will exclude certain family members from their insurance to get a cheaper rate.
Right, so if it's a
common with
teenage
drivers,
right?
And they are wanting to say, excluding a teenage driver will save you a lot of money on your car insurance premiums, may hurt them here if that's the case. But if you have an option to exclude certain drivers, high-risk drivers, people with history of DUI, or teenage drivers, that's going to make your rates go down. But if you decide to exclude them and they are driving your vehicle and hurt somebody, that person can come after them individually. And whether somebody has insurance or not, they're still personally liable for whatever the verdict is. We've had cases where, I had a case where I had a lady and her daughter who were severely injured in a car accident, like bad. And the at-fault driver had the minimum insurance, $25,000, which was not near enough. But the at-fault driver had a lot of assets, farmland, a mansion, and was driving around with the minimum limits insurance. And usually I don't do this, but in a case like when I had a severely injured little girl, I went after that guy because $25,000 wasn't going to touch what happened to her. So especially those people who own your home, have retirement accounts, make sure you have enough liability insurance, because if you run a red light and kill somebody and you don't have that much insurance, that could financially be your problem.
Sounds like we all need to call our insurance companies.
Yeah, well, and call them to update them, because I talked to somebody about this situation yesterday where his daughter turned 15. He went ahead and bought her a car when she turned 15 so that she could learn in the car that she was going to be driving when she turned 16. So he didn't place his daughter on the policy yet. He just insured the vehicle. Well, he forgot to add her to the policy, even though the car was on it when she turned 16. She got in a wreck, and then there were 3 girls that were hurt. And there was a question there about whether or not she was going to be afforded coverage. And so people just need to be really familiar with what their insurance policy says. And, agents are there to help guide them through the process, but they don't always fully understand what's in the policy. And it's just really important to
insurance
know what's in it.
is super boring until it's like, oh,
Until you
crap,
really need
I
it,
need
right?
it.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that means? Most people don't find out about insurance till the bad things already happen. It's too late to go back and fix it.
I'm glad you're telling us in your newsletter. You ought to have a list. These are all the questions you
That's a
asked.
good idea. We'll do that next month.
That would be really good.
Yeah.
Here's another question in our email inbox from Tanya. I was in a car wreck about a year ago and tore my rotator cuff. I've been trying to settle my case with the other driver's insurance company, which is State Farm, but they won't return my phone calls. Do I really need a lawyer to take this over, or is there a way to force them to try to settle with me?
Well, first of all, they're your insurance company, and they have a duty to you as their insured, and they've got a duty to evaluate claims within a reasonable time frame. They've got a duty to pay claims when it's prudent to do so. And if they don't do these things, then they might be liable for something called bad faith. I mean, built into the law in all contracts, but especially in this setting, is a duty of good faith dealing. And so they owe that duty of good faith to their insured. And in this case, clearly she's not able to get in touch with them. They're not fulfilling their obligations. And I'm not saying that their conduct in this instance rises to the level of bad faith, but it might. And and Bart can tell you this. Bad faith, those are two words that insurance companies, they don't want to hear. It brings in punitive damages. Yeah. We see this a lot, and we handle bad faith claims often against insurance companies in instances similar to this.
If it's another person's car insurance, they don't have any responsibility to you. They can ignore your phone calls. They can not make you a single settlement offer. They have no legal responsibility to you, and you can't hold them liable for ignoring you. So, if you run into that issue with another person's car insurance, you're probably going to need a lawyer. There's a few insurance companies out there who I won't name on air, but that are worse about this than others. If it's your own car insurance company, like you're making an uninsured motorist claim, like a phantom motorist, a hit and run accident, and they won't respond to you, well, they actually have a legal responsibility to you as their customer, as their insured, to investigate and settle a claim. And you can argue over what the claim is worth, but they have a responsibility to respond to you. So it's a little bit different when it's another person's insurance who has no responsibility to you and your own insurance company who does. Your own insurance company can still be adverse to you. They'll still lowball you, and they'll still try to, take your statements out of context and twist them against you later. And most people, again, don't realize that until it's too late. They thought their insurance company was on their side, and it's not always true.
We're going to hear about that next week. Yeah. So very good point. Thank you very much, Bart and Barnes, for being with us and sharing so much great information. Next week, the attorneys are going to cover the topic of injuries, from injuries on the job to car accidents and slip and fall cases. We look forward to hearing from you, our viewers, with your questions about injuries or any other legal topic you would like for our attorneys to tackle. Join us next Sunday night after the late news.
The preceding was a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys.